I have been part of 100 plus exorcisms as a priest. This is how my story started. It's one thing to read all the book knowledge and to understand what the church believes and teaches about evil. It's another thing to see the practical application and to experience the demonic itself. When someone believes they have been possessed, there's a rigorous protocol and processes the Catholic Church follows before considering an exorcism, including many psychiatric evaluations and exhausting all other possible explanations. I then sit down and do an intake questionnaire trying to determine if this is demonic. The church works with anyone who believes that they're up against the forces of evil. My main goal is to determine if that is really the case, because I'm trained to be a skeptic. I average around 3,500 people a year who reach out to me for help, and they come from all over the United States and other parts of the world, all kinds of faith backgrounds, you name it. I'm a priest for the Roman Catholic Archdiocese of Indianapolis, and I was ordained back in 1991. 14 years into being a priest, my bishop appointed me to attend an exorcism. It was the year 2005 at the time I was appointed. I was one of only 12 appointed by the Catholic exorcist priests in the United States. Today that number has grown to 175 plus. The church says the best way to learn the ministry is through the apprenticeship model, but because there were so few in the United States back in 2005, my bishop sent me to Rome, Italy, and I was able to train under a priest who allowed me to sit in on 40 exorcisms that he performed over the 3 months I was there. After many months, we were ready to perform an exorcism to a female who needed the help of the church. The woman said she had suffered abuse and turned to drugs and prostitution. The exorcisms are performed in a sacred space. I was nervous but curious to see this in person. It was on a Monday around 7 p.m. at night. We had prepared a room to perform the exorcism. The room had no windows. We made sure it was dark lit. The woman was sitting on a chair. I could tell that she was in pain. She kept moving and screaming even before I walked in. Once I walked in with the priest who was going to be performing the exorcism, grabbed her head as he held a book and a cross. The priest began saying out loud, "In the name of Jesus Christ, our God and Lord, strengthened by the intercession of the Immaculate Virgin Mary, Mother of God." The woman started to scream louder and louder, and all of a sudden her body elevated. The body was about a foot out of the chair. I'm looking at this in disbelief. What in the world is going on here? How is it possible? And then the priest takes his hand and puts it on top of her head, pushes the woman back into the chair and continues to pray. "Be gone, Satan, inventor and master of all deceit, enemy of man's salvation. Give place to Christ in whom you have found none of your works. Give place to the one." After a few minutes of screaming, the woman calmed down. Her eyes came back and she felt from the chair. The exorcism was over. I couldn't believe what just happened. Nothing could prepare me for seeing evil inside of someone like that. The priest acted like casual business for him. He touched her head and said, "You will be fine," and he exited the door. Few years ago I heard the woman was doing much better and felt like she was not possessed. I was glad to hear she was doing much better. The Vatican emphasized that the role of the church is not to force beliefs, but rather to present them as options. In 2014, the Catholic Church officially recognized exorcism and established the International Association of Exorcists. It was the year 2015 in Mississippi. I was in a dimly lit room where the air hung heavy. I, Father Michael, stood before a woman named Emily who had sought refuge in the church. Her eyes darted around nervously. Fear etched across her face as she pleaded for help. "Father, please, you have to believe me. There's something inside me, something evil." Emily's voice trembled as she spoke. Her desperation echoed through the cold stone walls of the chapel. As a Catholic priest, I had encountered many challenges, but this was different. Emily's distress was palpable. I knew the ritual of exorcism was a last resort, reserved for cases like this. After doing lots of evaluations, I thought the only way was to begin the ancient rite. I took her to a private room in the church where the flickering candles cast eerie shadows as I started to recite the prayers, my voice resonating through the sacred space. Emily had a demonic force living inside of her. I started praying, "By the power of God, I command you to leave this woman." My words were echoing with authority. Suddenly, Emily's body started to convulse violently, and an evil voice came out from her, a voice that I had not heard in her exorcism. It said, "She is mine. You cannot save her. She belongs with me. You must leave us alone." I pressed on by praying louder. I grabbed her head and squeezed it. The battle between good and evil was playing out in our small chapel. Emily's face was turning left to right. It seemed like the evil was leaving her body. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, a serene calm descended upon Emily. Her eyes, once clouded by darkness, now sparkled with clarity. I helped Emily to her feet, and a sense of relief washed over both of us. The battle had been won, and the demon expelled. As she left the chapel, Emily turned to me with tearful gratitude. The weight of the supernatural encounter lingered, a reminder of the thin veil between the seen and the unseen in the world I inhabited as a priest. I spoke to Emily 6 months later after the exorcism and said that she was doing much better but was still having light demonic feelings. Remember that most cases you need to perform an exorcism few times before the person feels better.